Windows or Linux, which you should choose at the end of 2025 and of course coming to 2026. Now there is a lot of misinformation here that I see a lot from short form factor videos or just long videos of people who haven't really used Linux, haven't been using Linux a lot, or just are Mac users trying to make a video saying what you should do. And that's all correct. Some of them have good information, but this is something straight up guide for you of what you should do, what you should know, and what you should avoid. Now, I'm going to exclude Mac OS from this because it's essentially kind of useless to talk about it, because Mac lives in its own world, let's just say. If you're a developer or you just want to browse or you chose Mac, there probably is a reason why you chose Mac, and there isn't a lot of switching you can do on Mac hardware. There are some workarounds, but this video is not about it. Of course, right now this topic is very, very important because, as we know, a lot of hardware currently, as I can show you right here, Windows 10 ended support of its normal updates at October 14 of this year, 2025, which means a lot of hardware has become kind of obsolete, since you need TPM 2.0 and you need some special, a bit more modern hardware to be able to run Windows 11 right now and upgrade. And a lot of people just don't like Windows 11. I personally am not a big fan of Windows 11 as well. I am forced to use it for reasons I will tell you, but I am not a big fan as well. And if I wasn't forced, I would most likely just switch to Linux and forget about it. Now, why you should probably stay on Windows, try to upgrade your hardware, or use some kind of manipulation to install Windows 11, to just kind of go for it and just think about how you can maybe transition and get used to Windows 11. First of all, can you stay on Windows 10? Technically, yes. Would I recommend it? No, because security updates are important, and in general, a lot of stuff, just having updates is pretty important. But if you just absolutely have to, then I guess you can stay on Windows 10, and that's okay. But I would not recommend it. The recommendation would be Windows 11 or Linux. Now, Windows 11, if you don't have appropriate hardware, you can use tools like Rufus to install Windows 11 using some kind of TPM security bypass checks to just kind of avoid it. Now, Microsoft has made it very difficult to install everything offline, making a local account, but then again, it is what it is, right now. Should you consider changing to Linux? Now, while Linux is great right now, and there has been a lot of growth in market share for Linux, and I would definitely advise you to use Linux. Now, there are some things. If you play specific video games that have some kind of anti-cheat, let's say a video game that has kernel level anti-cheat, for example, let's say something like I don't know, like a Call of Duty game, right? Or maybe Apex Legends or Fortnite or stuff like that. Or maybe use Xbox Game Pass, software that's only available on Windows. Then, yes, I can understand why you would say, yeah, I need to stay on Windows, that's all I need. Or maybe use Adobe products, which notoriously work horribly or just don't work at all on Linux machines. Then, yes, I would also say you probably need to stay on Windows. Or you can use dual boot, maybe get used to Linux as well. But what I would definitely say is that you need to at least consider using Linux, because it is very important for us to learn, especially since it's obvious that Linux market share is growing. There are devices like Steam Deck that are popular, that have built-in, they're basically running on Arch Linux, right? And we don't even know about it. If you're just a casual user, or maybe you're a video editor who wants to try something new, something like, let's say, DaVinci Resolve, which is just an amazing software, right? If you haven't tried it for video editing, I would highly recommend learning it. It works perfectly fine on Linux. If you're a developer, if you just browse, and a lot of people, while they say, oh, I don't want to install Linux because I don't want to learn, or I don't want to use command line. First of all, you don't have to use command line. If you want to install something, Linux has stuff like App Store, for example, like Android would have, or iPhone would have, that you can just click and install applications. You do not have to use terminal or command line. And by saying, I don't want to learn something new, well, that's kind of the thing, right? When you switch software, you kind of have to learn something, even if it's easy. And I would guarantee you, an average person who uses just some kind of Google Docs, browsers, watches YouTube, or maybe play some single-player games, if I gave them Linux machine, and I just told them to do everything they would normally do, they wouldn't notice difference. Maybe there will be some UI differences, but you can get Linux as close to Windows as possible, because it's super customizable. Also, another great thing, because Linux is open source, there are a lot of security benefits. There are a lot of proofs that Linux doesn't track you. You can customize it as much as you want. Technically, you could even build your own Linux. Now, to answer the question again, should you stay on Windows? Remember the things I said. If you play kernel level anti-cheat games, if you have to use Adobe products, then yeah, maybe you should consider maybe upgrading hardware, going to Windows 11, staying on Windows 10, which I would not recommend, or bypassing TPM 2.0 security issues by using some tricks given by Rufus as an example to just get Windows 11 going. However, for most other people, and I will assume that's 90% of the cases, Linux is completely fine. Now, back to Linux. Which one I should recommend? For a beginner, I would say try to stay away from few things. First of all, stay away from people who say you should only use Arch Linux or you should only use Ubuntu or etc. etc. Technically, it doesn't matter. If you go and you Google, for example, top 10 Linux distributions for gaming, you will find like 10 different distributions, right? Let's say. It doesn't matter. Linux is Linux. There isn't a lot you can change. Yes, Arch Linux has the freedom that you install whatever you want and it's very bloatware free. Yes, Ubuntu is good because it has good support. One is Debian based, sure, one is Arch based. It doesn't technically matter because if you want to play video games, you can do that on Ubuntu, you can do that on Mint, you can on Arch, you can do pretty much on any Linux distribution. If you want to do video editing with DaVinci, you can do that as well on any Linux distribution. It's just some stuff has already built-in things. For example, Kali Linux has built-in tools for pen testers, but it doesn't mean that you can do pen test on Linux Mint, for example. You can just install the tools yourself. Linux is Linux. Don't fall for the stuff that you see. There's like top 10 distributions for Linux that you want to play Steam games on. And number one, you see something like Zorin OS, and Zorin OS is good. I have nothing against it, but you don't need to follow these tools. Just use, if you're a beginner, you have never tried Linux, trust me, use Linux Mint. Very simple, very easy, nothing complicated about this Linux. It works great, works perfectly out of the box, no real big issues with it. You can play games on it, you can do all your work, you can do browsing, pretty much anything that Linux allows, except for these few applications that Windows kind of has gatekeeping, or just Adobe is being lazy and not using them on Linux. So, what I would recommend is try to switch to Linux Mint. If you're not confident, watch some of our other videos where you can learn how to do dual boot, or maybe watch, you can look up guides on how to do dual boot, or just do what I do first. If you're not fully sure that I'm not sure I want to just completely erase my entire Linux and format the drive, then yeah, that's fine. Just use VirtualBox, install VirtualBox on your PC. It's very simple, just clicking a couple of things. Then go to download here on Linux Mint page, just see linuxmint.com, and you can go to download the latest version, let's say recommended, whatever, right? You can choose any edition you want. Some made is like XFCE is Lytle, this is classic, this is sleek modern. I would advise this if you want something closer to what Windows looks like, because also it looks pretty, so if your hardware can allow it, then use that. And talking about hardware, before I click this download link, by the way, which you would do, you can use it via torrent, or just if you have a torrent application, or you can just download from one of those mirrors, whichever country is closest to you, or just click world if you want, doesn't matter. I already obviously have it downloaded, so we don't have to waste time here. There it is, the ISO file. Now, before I show you how to set it up in VirtualBox so you can dip your toes and try Linux for the first time yourself, remember the following thing. While I said you would not notice a lot of difference as a casual user for if you just do browsing, you do Google Docs editing, you do development, etc., etc., you will notice one big difference on hardware. Linux runs much faster, much smoother. There isn't bloatware like Windows has. It's a lot lighter. Pretty much every single Linux distribution will run better. Linux technically just revives old hardware. I have an old laptop with 4 GB of RAM, and by running Windows 10, it's basically not even working at this point. I have Ubuntu on it, which is just Ubuntu lighter. It works perfectly. I can actually do work on it, even cybersecurity, more complicated tasks. I can run virtual machines, sure, but that's just because it's 4 GB of hardware. But you can give second life to an old laptop if you're using that, an old GPU, old CPU PC, or just if you want something smoother. I would highly advise you to use that. Again, there are very few downsides in using Linux. After you've installed VirtualBox and Linux Mint ISO file, I would say let's go to VirtualBox. This is the kind of initial thing that you would see, right? And you would here click on just the new, give it a name, let's say Linux Mint. Here you can choose which folder to save it. I'll just keep it default, no need to complicate it. Choose the ISO file. ISO file is what you need. Here you will see I have this Linux Mint. There you go, that's chosen. Unattended, proceed with unattended installation. Yeah, just we don't need that. We don't need any unattended installation. Keep it as Ubuntu because they're pretty much the same thing in this case. Specify hardware, whatever hardware you want. If you're using virtual machine, I would just say give half of what you have, or just 8 GB of RAM if possible. If you have only 8, give 4, etc. And for processor, I would say minimum, if you can give 2 is fine. I'll give 4 just because I can technically, right? But if you can, let's go for video sake 2. Virtual hard disk, whatever, how much space you want. Let's say I want like 50 GB or something like that, or 50, like 49, whatever, doesn't matter. You click finish here. That's it. Now, we're doing this in VirtualBox. I can make another video later where I'll just show you how to do it with a flash drive and just installing it on real hardware. But it's very, very simple. You just install it in your hard drive and on your USB drive, and that's it. Here, you see Start Linux Mint. Just hit enter here. Again, installing it on hardware is pretty simple because you'll just have to flash with something like Rufus or any other software, the ISO file, your USB drive, just plug the USB into the PC, choose that as your boot device, and you'll have the same exact screen that I'm about to have here on Linux Mint. You can see here the software, how it looks. It's very simple to install, and people who say, oh, it's difficult to install Linux, it's literally simpler than Windows. I don't know. I think mostly people who say that I wouldn't recommend Linux as a beginner because it's hard to install. That's just, if you have ever installed Windows, this is actually simpler. You have less clicks to do. You're not forced to connect to internet most of it. You're not forced, again. Installation is typically much faster than it happens on Windows because it's very simple. And you can see here, again, if you're using Arch from scratch, then yes, sure, installing Linux might be harder if you use Arch. But you don't have to use Arch. Most people who use Arch use it to say they use Arch, or maybe they have actual reasons they don't like bloatware. Would I use Arch? Maybe, again, if I feel like it, but there is no reason to use anything other than Mint for you. And the good thing about Linux, unlike Windows, is you get this live environment where you can play around with it a bit. For example, you can see here, if I click on menu, I can open terminal. You don't have to, but you can see this is a functioning operating system right now. It's just live boot, meaning it's not installed on my hardware. Same would happen if you did on VirtualBox or in real hardware. It's not installed, it's just a playground. We're playing with this. If you want to install after you're like, oh, I played around, I opened browser, I can browse some stuff, internet works, sound works, you can just check this, like go to sound settings, watch a YouTube video, make sure your internet is connected. You're like, okay, everything is good, everything works. What you can do now is click on install Linux Mint. After you do that, then you can just wait for the installation to pop up. Again, try this in VirtualBox first. There is no need to just dive into the ocean head first before actually dipping your toes into Linux first. At least for a day, use this in virtualization. Yes, it will be slower, but at least you'll know what you're getting into before you fully commit to Linux, right? And when I said it's very easy to install, check this out. You see language, English. Okay, continue. Good. English, this is my keyboard. Yes, sure. Same happens in Windows, right? It's even simpler here because all the options are here. Multimedia codecs, do I want to? Yeah, why not? Sure, it doesn't matter. You can just not click it if you don't want to. For VirtualBox, it doesn't actually matter in this case. I'm not going to render websites or use video. Would I advise you click it? Absolutely. We click continue. There you go. You can see it's a bit slow again. This is because of VirtualBox and because of how many parameters I gave it. Erase disk here. If you're in VirtualBox, don't worry to click this. The only disk it's gonna erase is the 50 GB of virtual memory, virtual hard drive memory we gave it. You're not actually going to harm your computer. I'm just gonna click here, install now. That's it. How many buttons was it? Like 4? 5? I think it was like 4 or 5 buttons, right? We just clicked. Then we click continue. And here you'll see the magic happen. Installation will just start after we also here click, of course, my city, Yerevan, sure, whatever. Give your username, let's say David, password, doesn't matter, 12345, let's say 12345. Login automatically, or no, I don't want to, I'll just type my password. It says it's short, doesn't matter, and there we go. The installation process just started. That's simple. Again, how many steps was that? And you'll see, unlike in Windows where it will take you 30 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes depending on hardware, this will install in like 5 to 10 minutes. It's very simple, very light. Nothing difficult so far happened, right? I'll be back. I'll make a cut here. I'll be back right after this Linux is installed, and I'll just show you that it's just a normal normal machine that you can use on everyday life or everyday work. I'll be back once this is installed. There you go, we're on the screen where it says installation complete. It says continuous testing or restart now. Let's just click restart now. After you do this, VirtualBox will restart. Same will happen if you did it on actual hardware on your PC. It will also restart. It says please remove installation media, then press enter. If you're on actual hardware, you can just remove the USB drive, press enter. If you're on VirtualBox, just press enter, don't worry about, because we don't have any actual real hardware, right? So what we do here is once we remove all of this, we'll see the following. We'll see right now how Linux Mint is just booting, right? Nothing special, nothing worrying about it. We're just booting into Linux Mint. This will, again, take maybe a few seconds. It will boot much faster than Windows. Here, I'll just type my password, 12345, and there you go. You can see that I'm currently right now entering my Linux Mint. That's it. Nothing else happening. I'm happy here. Okay, let's say show this dialog of startup. No, I don't want to. Let's go. You can see what we do. Let's just close this, right? Doesn't actually matter what we do. And what I can do right here is I don't even need to open terminal. I'm not even going to show it right now because I don't want to complicate anything. You can see here if I just type like software manager, right? I can just go to software manager. There's something like an app store, you can think about it. You can just install stuff you want here. What do you like using? Yes, it's better to install using sudo apt or just apt, right? Because it's Debian based. But I want to make it as simple as possible. Or you want to browse the web, right? You have your trusty maybe Firefox browser here, right? You want to install Google Chrome, you can do that as well. There you go. We see software that's available here. This is the browser. If you just do YouTube, that's it. You want to install here VirtualBox, Discord, Dropbox, whatever. You want to install Steam, Steam is probably here as well. There you go. You can install Steam and play your games that are supported by Linux, which thanks to Steam, there are a lot of them, pretty much most of them, except for the kernel entity ones I told you. You want to program, you can install Python. You're a developer, you want to use VS Code, you can do that too. There you go, VS Code. You want to use something else? PyCharm, for example. PyCharm, okay, PyCharm you have to install it from an actual website. Doesn't matter technically. Chrome, I think you have to install it from website as well, or you can just do this again. You can see how simple it is. It's basically an app store if you don't want to. You want to listen to some music, use Spotify. You want to code, use Sublime Text, etc., etc. Very simple. Again, if I show this to, let's say, a parent, a 50-year-old man or woman who are like, I've never used Linux, and I just gave them this PC, like, do whatever you want, they'll just be able to do whatever they want. Again, unless they're hardly like connected to Microsoft Word, and that's it. They don't want to use Google Docs, or they play Steam kernel level anti-cheat games. I'm pretty much tired of saying this, but unless you do all of this, you're good to go. This is as simple as it is, much simpler to install than Windows. If you want, I can show more in-depth Linux stuff you can do in the next video, but for now, that's it. How to get started. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.